This story had originally reached its conclusion in the previous episode, but you were all so adamant about seeing more that I just couldn't say no. I do recall that I made a promise that if the video was viewed enough and received well enough that I would provide you with another part, and here I am to keep my word. So sit back and let's get resituated with the story so far. Beast Squad was chosen from the 3 soon-to-be genin that were currently at the academy. Naruto was already the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails since birth. But after the end of the Third Shinobi World War, both Matatabi and Isobu had fallen into the hands of Konoha, with the beast having worked closely. They had been killed on the day that Kurama had broken free. Choosing both Sasuke and Sakura, the 2 and 3 tails were resealed and began to train with their new vessels. However, Naruto lost control of Kurama and ended up mortally wounding Sasuke. Naruto never truly forgave himself for that, but with help from Matatabi, they sought out a location in the Land of Lightning where Naruto could train to master his tailed beast powers, with or without Kurama's permission. Naruto, undergoing intense training, had managed to subdue Kurama, and managed to avert a world war by showing that not only was Konoha a sleeping lion ready to pounce on anyone who dared step to it, but also proved that this generation of Beast Squad surpassed everything that had been set up to that point. And due to their ability to strike anywhere at any time, the world was left shaking in its boots at the power Konoha displayed. And due to this, peace had been achieved for the next 8 years. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. The rain fell upon the cemetery as Sasuke stood there without an umbrella. Itachi was Sasuke's rock, just as Sasuke was the rock of Beast Squad. And now, with him gone, he couldn't help but wonder where he'd be without him. Raising his eyes up, he saw Izumi Uchiha there, standing by Makoto and Fugaku, and in her arms she carried a little girl, Sasuke's niece, Kinezumi. She was Itachi's legacy, the thing he left behind to prove he ever existed. As a member of the Anbu, it was customary to have his body cremated, and so he was, his ashes poured into the Naka River. So this grave here, this marker, technically did not possess a body and was more of a memorial to Itachi than anything, but this wasn't the only gift left behind. During his time, just prior to his death, he bequeathed his Sharingan to Sasuke, telling him that he would forever be with him and would always be his eyes, hoping that Sasuke would never stop seeing the light. This was the first case since the era of Madara Uchiha to see usage of a Mangekyo Sharingan, as the process of making one crossed too many moral boundaries that even the Uchiha were scared to do so. But Itachi had gifted these to him on his deathbed, a testament of brotherly love from one to another. Sasuke had vowed to him that with these eyes he would continue to watch over Izumi and their daughter, which pleased Itachi and gave him peace as he took his final breath. As he stood there quietly, Sakura stepped up from behind and grasped his hand. "Are you okay, Sasuke?" she asked. He took a moment to breathe before speaking through a slightly squeaky voice. "I think I'll be fine." She pushed the umbrella over him. "Come out of the rain, you'll catch a cold." He looked over at her. "Where's Sarada?" Sakura smiled. "She's still at the house. Kakashi-sensei's watching her." Sasuke let off a small smile, but his face once more returned to the same sorrow it had before. Sakura kissed his cheek. "Why don't we go to Ichiraku and have something to eat?" Sasuke nodded. "That sounds like a good idea." Heading into the center of town, they stepped into the shop and right into a conversation that Naruto was having with Teuchi. "So you're telling me that you were an Anbu plant the whole time, set up by Hiruzen to watch over me from birth?" Teuchi nodded. "Yeah, ramen making was always in my family, so that was the cover I took. A ramen shop owner. In the end though, I settled down and officially retired from the Anbu. I never gave up on my mission though, and that was to make sure you stayed fed." Naruto couldn't get over this new revelation. "But why are you telling me this now?" Teuchi laughed. "Because I don't really think you need me watching over you anymore. You're the Hokage for Pete's sake. I assumed you would have figured it out by now." Hinata laughed a little as she hugged onto Naruto's arm. Hinata herself had been married to Naruto just about as long as Sakura and Sasuke had. Their relationship was one fraught with quiet love and thick-skulled naivete, but when the two finally did realize the truth, it didn't take them too long to grow smitten with each other. Hinata was currently pregnant herself, and she was showing too. It would be a boy, and Naruto had decided to honor both his own lineage as well as Hinata's by offering a name that fit both sides of the family, and that name was Boruto. Sasuke sat down next to Naruto, and Sakura sat down on the other side of Sasuke. 2 bowls, please, Sasuke said. Naruto looked over. Sasuke, did you know that this guy's been watching over me since day 1? Sasuke looked at Teuchi. I thought everyone knew that. This guy was the only guy besides the Hokage to even talk to you. Of course he's been watching over you. Naruto was stunned by this new information, but it made sense. Was it real? He asked Teuchi. Teuchi laughed a little and leaned on the bar a little. Yes, Naruto, it was. If it wasn't, I wouldn't have continued protecting you after my retirement. You're my favorite customer. Naruto blushed a little. You're my favorite ramen maker. Teuchi smiled. For that, you get another bowl. On the house. He served up 4 more bowls of ramen, 1 for each person sitting at the bar. Eating it, Naruto and Sasuke talked. I'm sorry about what happened with Itachi, he said. Sasuke didn't take his eyes away from his ramen. I know. It's not like it was your fault or anything. You really did try sending Tsunade to us. Thanks for that, by the way. She bought him enough time to meet his daughter. I wish I could have done more, Naruto said. We all do, Sasuke returned as he continued eating his ramen. After their meal, the 4 stood up and made their way outside. Naruto and Hinata stood there, the rain having abated and the skies beginning to open up to the sunset. The 4 stood for a moment and let off a smile to each other. This time was just tough for everyone, and nobody really knew what to say. But as the sun peeked out from behind the clouds, it felt as if Itachi was calling out to them and asking them to be happy. They had so much to be grateful for, and his passing should be celebrated. Not because he'd died, but because he'd lived it all. And because he'd managed to do the one thing in his life he'd always dreamed of doing, having a family of his own. The 4 of them offered a hug of comfort. Pulling back, Naruto spoke. If you ever need anything, Sasuke, let me know. I'll move heaven and earth just to help you 2 out. Sasuke smiled. Likewise, Naruto. And so the 2 parties bid adieu and went their own way. Sakura and Sasuke walked with Fugaku, Makoto, Izumi, and little Kinezume back to the compound. They dropped off Izumi and her daughter first and then made their way to the home of Sasuke and Sakura. Fugaku and Makoto would hug the 2 of them. Are you sure it's going to be alright? Makoto asked. It's okay if you're not, Fugaku said. I highly doubt any of us are. Sasuke nodded. I'll be okay eventually. It's not like we weren't prepared, it still hurts, you know? Makoto nodded. I know, but your brother wouldn't want us pouting. He's still with us, even if we can't see him. Sasuke offered a kiss to his mother's cheek and a hug to his father. He waved to them as they left. Sasuke and Sakura then made their way into their home. Kakashi-sensei, we're home, she called. There was silence. Sakura stepped up the stairs to the baby's room as Sasuke began putting on a pot of tea. He started boiling the water, but dropped it when he heard Sakura scream. Like a flash, he was up the stairs, skipping 3 steps at a time, landing beside her. He looked in the room and saw a mysterious masked figure, holding Sarada in one arm and in the hand opposite gripping Kakashi by the throat, a chakra rod piercing his chest. Sasuke stepped in, his Mangekyo Sharingan burning brightly as he refused to blink. Put my child down, he said as he began circling the masked figure. The mask looked like a Rinnegan, and this was for good reason, as one of the eyes the masked man possessed was a Rinnegan. The other, however, was a dojutsu Sasuke had never witnessed before. With a deep voice, the man spoke. And what of your master? Wouldn't you prefer me to put him down as well? Sasuke looked at Kakashi, his eyes narrowing before returning to the masked individual. Suddenly, the Rinnegan of the masked man activated, and Sasuke was blasted back out the window. He flew back and struck the building across from it, where he landed in the interior, breaking the wood. He stood and then looked back at him. The man spoke. I'll be seeing you real soon. He then disappeared, as if he never existed at all, taking Sarada with him, but leaving Kakashi behind. Sakura rushed to Kakashi. Sasuke jumped back to the other building to check on his master. Kakashi opened his eye for just a moment. Not the way I thought I would go out, he said, with the same nonchalant voice he always carried. I thought for sure it would be behind enemy lines, never from a babysitting assignment gone wrong. I guess we don't get to choose the ending, right? Sasuke shook his head. You're not gonna die, Kakashi-sensei. You just gotta stay with us. Sakura began healing him. She removed the rod. Kakashi was then transported to Konoha General, where he was eventually stabilized. The silver lining was that Kakashi survived, but the dark cloud remained. Sarada had been kidnapped. Why? Why was she kidnapped? That was the million-real question. Naruto would eventually show up at the hospital to check on their mentor. How is he? Naruto asked. He's going to live, Sakura said, but Naruto looked to her and then to Sasuke. What is it? Sasuke looked to Naruto. Sarada. Whoever did this to Kakashi took off with her. Wait, what? Hinata asked, trying to wrap her mind around it. Why would anyone do such a thing? She asked. Sasuke shook his head. I don't know. More than likely it was to get to me and Sakura, but I still can't figure out why. Naruto thought about this for a second. He looked to his side. Haku! Suddenly, the captain of the Anbu, Haku Yuki, appeared. What can I do for you, Lord Sixth? I need you to gather the Anbu and begin investigating immediately. Find out who's responsible and start setting up a plan to deal with them. Haku bowed his head. As you wish, Lord Hokage. Haku then disappeared. Can you get a description on the man? Naruto asked. The man was wearing a mask, but there were a few things that stood out. First of all, he had a Rinnegan. Naruto cocked his head. A Rinnegan? What's that? Sasuke then began to explain. Matatabi explained it to me. It's the same dojutsu that the Sage of Six Paths possessed. It's a sort of lavender color, with rings extending out past the pupil. It's supposed to be a rare dojutsu that few people, if any, have awakened since the death of the sage. Besides that, he had a strange yellow dojutsu that looked like the spokes on the wheel of a cart. Naruto nodded. Anything else? Sasuke shrugged. The only other thing he wore was a mask that looked like a Rinnegan. That was the only thing that seemed different, but the mask was a disguise. It likely won't remain the same. Naruto sighed and looked around. I'll get to work on this as soon as I can. For now, you two try and relax. If he said he'd be seeing us real soon, then it's unlikely that he'll hurt Sarada. This sounds more like a standard ransom case. Sarada should remain uninjured until he gets what he wants, so let's just wait. We'll likely hear word from him soon enough. Naruto turned and began to leave. Hinata offered a slight smile and a wave before following after Naruto. Sakura sat down in the chair with great force. Sasuke turned back to look at her, afraid that she might have passed out. She sat there in the chair, looking as if she might cry. He walked to her and knelt down. Are you okay? She shook her head. How can I be? Our little girl's been taken by some unknown entity and is being held hostage. I want so badly to do something and there's nothing I can do. I feel so helpless. Sasuke pushed her hair back and offered a kiss on her forehead. Don't worry, we're going to figure this out. And when we do, I'm going to get our baby back, and I'm gonna make this masked man wish he died in the cradle. I promise. She nodded. Sasuke took Sakura home and helped her to bed to rest. This was going to be one of the roughest times they had ever experienced, but they were shinobi, and that meant they needed to carry on. Shinobi needed to be hardy, and they needed to be dependable when nobody else was. He would lay her down to rest. Inside of Sasuke's subconscious, Matatabi spoke. The man who took your daughter, I fear he was after myself and Isobu. Why do you think that? Sasuke asked. Because that man possessed the Rinnegan and targeted you and Sakura specifically. I'm not sure what he's planning exactly, but it most likely has to do with us and the God Tree. The God Tree? Sasuke asked inquisitively. Matatabi looked down at him, realizing that she'd never told him what this was. The God Tree was something that originated during the era of the Sage of Six Paths. It's where all tailed beasts originate. 1,000 years ago, a woman named Kaguya came down and planted a tree. That tree would absorb all of the chakra on the planet to provide a fruit that, when consumed, would essentially turn the devourer of it into a god. She partook of that fruit and began conquering the world until her two children, Hagoromo and Hamada, rose to stop her. Together, they fought against her and seized the chakra of the Ten Tails from her and sealed her away in the moon, along with the husk of the God Tree, the Ten Tails. Hagoromo maintained the Ten Tails chakra for the duration of his life, but when time came that he would die, he feared that the Ten Tails might break free and destroy everything he'd fought for. So he divided its power by 9 and created every one of the tailed beasts, myself included. However, it's believed that should the 9 of us ever be reunited with the Gedo statue, which is the husk of the Ten Tails, that the threat of the Ten Tails would return. Sasuke listened to this. But how can you be so sure that this has to do with the Ten Tails? Matatabi thought for a moment. Intuition. He had the Rinnegan, and the Rinnegan is the only dojutsu that possesses the ability to control the Gedo statue. I don't believe it's a coincidence that one with such a rare and powerful dojutsu would stoop to petty crime as a life option. It's even more of a stretch to believe that such a petty criminal would just happen to target 2 of Konoha's 3 Jinchuriki. Please, be on your guard. I don't think this is going to be a cut and dry ransom. Sasuke offered a slight bow of respect. I will be careful, Matatabi. Thank you. In Sakura's subconscious, however, she was with Isobu, who was trying to comfort her. She sat with him, crying. What's wrong, Sakura-chan? Isobu asked. Sobi-kun, someone took my baby away from me. Isobu seemed startled. You mean that little light I saw inside of you those months? That little happy chakra? She nodded. Sarada. Isobu seemed speechless. I'm sorry, Sakucha. If I had been there, maybe I could have saved her. Sakura shook her head. No, you couldn't have done anything. If either of us made a move on him, he would have killed both Sarada and Kakashi-sensei. There was nothing we could do. Isobu lamented this. He felt helpless. He knew what loss was like and how it felt to have someone you loved ripped away from you. There was nothing he could say that would change it, and that he knew painfully well. But he also knew how valuable it was to have a friend in your corner to help support you. He leaned his head forward and nudged her a little. She looked back at him. He spoke. You know we're gonna find her, right? I swear on my life I'll help you get your baby back. Sakura turned around and hugged Isobu. Thanks, Sobi. All the while, Naruto in his office was having a rough description put together of this masked individual. He couldn't help but think about what had happened. It upset him that something like this could happen, and he swore he would find who was responsible and make them pay. But it was just then that Haku stepped in and bowed. Naruto stood from his seat. Haku, do you know what time it is? Is everything all right? Haku looked up. I'm sorry to intrude on your work, Lord Sixth, but a letter has come in. Haku held up an envelope. Naruto felt a sudden pressure come across him. This had to be it. Who else could it be? Without speaking, he urged Haku to bring it to him. Haku brought him the envelope, and Naruto opened it in his own style, which was down the height of the letter as opposed to the length. He pulled the letter free and opened it up. He resisted the urge to speed read, something he had learned to do as Hokage and had now become habit. He read through the contents of the letter, which was painfully short but to the point. He flopped down into his chair and tossed it on the table. He covered his eyes with his hand as if he were feeling a migraine starting to come on. Haku was silent as he stood there. He was generally very professional, despite Naruto's attempts to get him to lower his guard. All the same, Haku couldn't help but ask, what did it say? Naruto looked up at him from between his fingers. They want the tailed beasts in return for Sarada. Haku thought about this for a moment. But if Sasuke and Sakura give up their beasts, then they'll die. I will too. They made mention of the Nine Tails as well. They want all 3 beasts for the child. Haku shook his head. I understand your plight, Naruto, and I understand that this family is close to you, but you can't consider this seriously. There's no way that you can make this decision. The village needs you more. Naruto sat forward. I am Hokage, Haku. It's my job to protect everyone in this village. Everyone. And that includes the children and the babies. In fact, they're the ones who need my protection most. I will not suffer Sarada to die. And I also won't leave her without her parents either. Haku sat silently for a moment. So, what do you plan to do? The next day, Sasuke woke up to the sound of Shinobi knocking at the door. He looked at the clock. It said 7 a.m. He had only gotten 2 hours of sleep, but that didn't matter. He assumed that this was going to be important. He stood and changed out of his pajamas and into his shinobi gear, grabbing his blade and his cloak. He made his way to the door and opened it to see Yamato standing there in full Anbu armor save his mask. The Hokage requests your presence at his office as soon as possible. Sasuke nodded and turned to Sakura, who was sitting up in bed. What is it? Sasuke looked down at the slip of paper given to him by Yamato. It says they have a lead on Sarada. We need to meet with Naruto, ASAP. Sakura was quick to get out of bed and even quicker to get into her shinobi gear. Together, the husband and wife made their way to the Hokage's residence where Naruto was waiting. What's the update? Sasuke asked. Naruto was surrounded by Anbu operatives putting together a plan. Naruto looked over at Sasuke. He pushed forward the letter. Sasuke read it. According to the words on it, they were to meet this masked individual at Tenchi Bridge in Kusagakure to complete the ransom. In exchange for the return of Sarada, Konoha had to surrender their tailed beasts. As soon as Sasuke read this, he knew what Matatabi had said was correct. He passed the letter to Sakura to read as he turned to Naruto. What's your plan? Surely we don't expect to give up the tailed beasts to this interloper. Naruto nodded. Indeed. We have a plan in place. We can't assume that he's working alone, so we're gonna have to be careful about this. But I had Tsunade tend to Kakashi-sensei and he's been released from the hospital early. He will be integral to our plan. And what is this plan? Sakura asked. Naruto began explaining it to them. We're gonna have Kakashi stand a good distance away from us with a clear line of sight. We're going to give him a monocular, and the moment the adversary brings out Sarada to prove that he has her, Kakashi will make use of his Kamui and teleport her out. After that, the Anbu will rush in to take this man into custody where we can find out what he's after. It's a good plan, but how can you be so sure that he'll show us Sarada? Sasuke asked. Because we hold the leverage, Naruto said. This man is hinging on our sentimentality. He doesn't have as much power over the village as he does over us. He'll need to give us physical proof that Sarada is still alive, and that means he's gonna have to have her present or the deal won't go through. The moment he provides that proof, we're going to strike. When do we head out? Sakura asked. Today, Naruto said. We need to get to the bridge as soon as possible. This man didn't give us much time to act. I think he's hinging on the fact that this won't be enough time for us to prepare. He sounds inexperienced, Sasuke said. Naruto nodded. I'm hoping that's true. Naruto stood. Now gather what you think you'll need. We set out at once. And so the three of them gathered their tools and set out with their Anbu escort. Kakashi was close by the entire time, making sure that they were all emotionally sound. He couldn't expect them to be anything but frazzled, but they were maintaining a level head and refusing to panic. This was a very professional way of handling the situation, and he was glad to see that his team had grown into a group of professional shinobi that could make the Leaf proud. As they got to the area where they were planned to meet this masked man, Kakashi would be taken to the cliff overlooking the bridge, where there was some foliage to cover him. He would get down and hide himself in a bush with his monocular. From here, he had a pretty good view of the bridge. He radioed in to Naruto, telling him that he was in position. Naruto acknowledged and continued on to the meeting site. They would stand on the bridge at its center and wait. It was obvious that Sakura and Sasuke were nervous just by the looks on their faces, but this was okay. It would further help to sell the desperation they hoped to exude. Eventually, the man in the mask would appear. He would meet them on the bridge. Oh my, all three beasts have appeared, just as hoped, he said. Where is Sarada? Sakura shouted at him. Oh, she's safe. Don't you worry. If you wish to see her again, you'd better come with me. No way, Naruto said. We're not going into this blind. We need proof to see that she's still healthy. We need to see her with our own two eyes, right here and now, before we agree to anything. The man stood silently for a moment. He took a deep breath and let it out. I don't suppose it could hurt. The man looked down into his arms, and suddenly Sarada appeared there. Kakashi saw her. Neji, who was beside him, activated his Byakugan. Confirmed. It's her. Extract. Kakashi would utilize Kamui to teleport her out, but to his surprise, all he teleported was the monocular in his hand. Uh-oh. Sakura and Sasuke saw her and began wondering when Kakashi was going to teleport her out. Kakashi stood from the bushes. Screw it. I'm going to do it free eye. Come on, Mangekyo, don't fail me now. He strained hard to see such a small child from this distance, but he guessed the general location. He hoped he'd calculated it right because going into this nearly blind was dangerous. If he hadn't measured it correctly, he might have inadvertently severed a limb or at worst, killed it. But right now he had to have faith that his calculations were correct or this would be very bloody. There's no time like the present. Kamui! He activated it. He stood there breathing deeply for a moment. Neji, status. Neji, status. Neji took a moment. Confirmed. Target extracted. Kakashi let out a sigh of relief and fell on his back. Phew. Back on the bridge, the child suddenly was teleported away from the masked man's arms. Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke then got into fighting position. Give up, Naruto shouted at him. You've lost your bargaining chip. It's over. The man smiled. Is it? He would suddenly rush them, taking 2 steps forward, activating his dojutsu. Daikokuten! Suddenly, the three were gone. The man on the bridge then disappeared himself. How long they were in the world of Daikokuten they did not know. Time did not seem to flow there at all. All they knew was that they were awakened in some other dimension. There, they saw the masked man standing before a massive statue. Sasuke stepped forward. So what's this? You're planning to use the Ten Tails? Naruto looked over to him, confused as to what he meant by Ten Tails. The man removed his mask to show none other than Obito Uchiha. Indeed, I will return all 9 beasts to the statue and reawaken that which Kaguya stole so many years ago. Sasuke was confused. Stole? Obito smiled. Yes, stole. You see, so many years ago, a man named Obito Uchiha began to do work for one named Madara, hoping to reawaken the Ten Tails in an effort to cast the infinite Tsukiyomi and place the world into a never-ending dream. Neither of them realized they were being manipulated by Kaguya's shadow. Not until I appeared. I took Obito and realized he was compatible with my karma seal due to half of his body being made up of Zetsu and Hashirama Senju's cells. I came to inhabit his body and began to plan my rise. Who are you? Naruto asked. The man smiled. I am Ishiki Otsutsuki, and I've been preparing for this time for decades. You've been planning this? Naruto asked. Ishiki smiled through Obito's teeth. You didn't think the Nine Tails escaping your mother was an accident, did you? Naruto was stunned. You killed my parents? Ishiki's smile returned to a professional stare. Indeed, and if it hadn't been for your father, and the fact that I had yet to fully bond with my new vessel, I would have taken it. But because of his interference, both you and your friends have to die now. Suddenly, black markings began to cover his face and body. He launched at them, ready to attack. Naruto suddenly awakened his Nine Tails chakra cloak and began to fight. Now, if you think Sasuke and Sakura have just been sitting on their hands the past 8 years, you would be mistaken. Sasuke stepped forward, his Mangekyo active. He would suddenly be enveloped with a blue flame-like cloak, his own Two Tails chakra cloak, and behind him, Sakura would suddenly awaken a red one with gray armor covering her from head to toe, her Three Tails chakra cloak. Together, they rushed at Ishiki, striking. Ishiki would form claws with his hands and catch their attacks before striking back, sending them flying. Sasuke would summon his Susanoo and fire an arrow at Ishiki with it, but Ishiki would utilize Sukuna Hikona to shrink himself to a minuscule size and reappear in front of Sasuke, striking him with his claw. Naruto would strike out at Ishiki and manage to send him flying. Sakura came at Ishiki with her armored form, attempting to blitz him, but before she could, Ishiki utilized Daikokuten to drop a large cube on top of her. She stood there, holding the cube up on her back. Sasuke would stand and rush at him, his Susanoo behind him. Together, Naruto and Sasuke struck Ishiki, drawing blood and causing him to tumble along the ground. It was then that Sakura jumped into the air holding his cube and dropped it down on top of him. Together they stood there. "There's no way he survived that," Sakura said. "I crushed him under the weight of that cube. It nearly killed me, so there's no way he survived it." This seemed like she was trying to convince herself as opposed to the others, but just as feared, the cube disappeared. When the smoke cleared, the visage of Obito Uchiha had been completely erased, replaced with the appearance of Ishiki's true form. He spoke. "It's ironic that half of this body was destroyed by a falling rock, and the other half should be destroyed to protect me from being crushed by my own attack." Naruto stood there, sweat dripping down his cheek. No way! His powers skyrocketed! Sasuke swallowed the saliva that was threatening to choke him. He spoke. "No matter, we still have to beat him. I'm not going to lay here like a dog and die. I'm going to fight back." Sasuke was the first in. He began swinging, but his fist was caught and he was punched and flung away as if he were no more than a ragdoll. Sakura screamed out for him, "Sasuke!" In her anger, she beat her fists together just to hear the armor on them clang. She then rushed at him with her full speed, even tapping into her strength of 100 seal to increase it further. It was increased so much that she became invisible to the naked eye. She crashed through Ishiki, sending him flying back, all while Naruto prepared a big ball Rasengan. Sasuke managed to stand. Sakura called out to him, "Are you alright?" He held up a thumb. "I'm good." He then coated his Two Tails chakra cloak in Susanoo armor and brandished his Susanoo's sword in his hand. He coated it in Amaterasu, planning to pull out all the stops against Ishiki. He would rush at Ishiki, hoping to strike him with the blade, but Ishiki pulled out a chakra rod and used it to deflect the flaming blade. He grabbed Sasuke's arm and spun in a circle, sending Sasuke flying back. Sasuke landed on his feet near Sakura and stood there, ready to continue, but he suddenly fell to his knees and fell into a coughing fit. He wheezed as bloody mucus ejected from his mouth. Sakura rushed to him to check up on him. "Sasuke, are you okay?" He held up his finger to tell her that he'd be a minute, when he suddenly wheezed and coughed out more blood. The damage he had taken to his lungs 8 years prior never truly healed, and now he was a chronic asthmatic. But worse, anytime he overexerted himself, he would enter a coughing fit that popped some of the capillaries in his alveoli. That being said, it was obvious that he didn't have the strength to continue. His transformation fell away as he was left on his hands and knees just fighting to breathe. Naruto jumped into the air to deliver his big ball Rasengan. As the orb came down, Ishiki threw a chakra rod up at it with such strength and force that it popped the Rasengan, causing it to explode. Worse still, he struck Naruto in the shoulder with the rod, sending him flying back. Sakura stood alone. That's when Isobu spoke up. "He's going to kill everyone if we don't stop him, Sakura-chan. We need to defeat him as fast as possible." Sakura agreed, but was there more they could do? Isobu then spoke. "There's one thing we can try, but it's really dangerous and could, likely result in our deaths." Sakura was startled to hear that, but looking at Naruto and Sasuke, she realized that this was the only shot they had. This way, at least Sarada would have one parent instead of none. "What are we going to do, Iso?" He then began to explain it to her. "We're going to take our two chakras, and we're going to smash them together in a way similar to nuclear fusion. That will create an explosion of energy inside of us, like a power plant. We'll use that extra power to kill Ishiki, but we need to do it as fast as we can, Sakucha. If we take too long, we'll die before we finish him." Sakura nodded. "I understand. Tell me what to do. Just activate your strength of 100 seal. I'll do the rest." Sakura nodded. She did so. Suddenly her chakra cloak pulled back a bit, leaving merely her arms and shoulders covered in thick gray chakra armor as her sclera turned a deep red color. She gained 3 tails behind her, of the same color as the shell. Naruto looked at Sakura with amazement, realizing just how powerful she'd become. Sasuke looked at her. "What are you doing?" Matatabi then spoke out through Sasuke. "Isobu, stop! Stop this instant, you'll die!" Isobu looked to Matatabi and spoke through Sakura. I would rather die than lose someone like Rin again. If I die, Matatabi, I want you to promise me that you'll take care of Sakura for me. Matatabi shook her head. No, that's your job. If you do this, I'll never forgive you. Isobu smiled at her. Please, promise me. Isobu's innocence was impossible to stay mad at. Matatabi began to tear up. Don't. I love you, Isobu. I know you do, Mata-chan, but I have to do this. Please, promise me. Matatabi slowly nodded. I promise. Isobu smiled brightly at this. Please don't look away. This is my moment. And with that, he rushed at Ishiki. All the while, Naruto watched this with horror, as did Sasuke, crying out for Sakura to stop. Inside Naruto, Kurama was startled by this. Why would a tailed beast, a creature as strong as a god, offer to sacrifice its existence for a human, a temporary being on Earth? It was then that beside Kurama's cage, the shade of Kushina and Minato stood. Because that is love, Kurama. That's what you wanted so much, and that's how far it will go to protect the other. No doubt Sakura would have done the same for Isobu. Kurama continued to watch. Maybe he'd been wrong. Maybe he wasn't a slave. Maybe this was something more. Sakura, in her Baryon mode state, struck out at Ishiki, the tears of the tailed beast and Sakura together dripping down their faces. These were tears of fear, tears of death, tears of never seeing what you loved and treasured most ever again. But all the same, the face bore a smile, one that said no matter what happened next, it would all be okay, just so long as everyone was safe. Sakura's fist struck Ishiki like a train. He was hit so hard he was sure that the bones of his arms had hairline fractures. He would go on the counteroffensive, trying to knee Sakura in the gut and then hammer the back of her head with his hands, before a spinning roundhouse kick was delivered to her face to knock her away. Sakura stood and formed a massive tailed beast ball in her hand, about the same diameter as Naruto's big ball Rasengan. She jumped into the air and began bringing it down on top of Ishiki, but he merely used his incredible speed to dodge it. After the explosion, Sakura was just left there panting. She felt like it was too much, like she was about to pass out. Isobu spoke in her subconscious. Saku-chan, I'm about to lose consciousness. We need to hurry or we'll fail. We need to pack everything we have into this one final shot. She nodded. All right. She would begin to form another big ball-tailed beast bomb in her hand. Ishiki scoffed at this. If it didn't work before, what makes you think it'll work now? Because we're here, two voices shouted. Suddenly, a shadow clone of Sasuke in his Two Tails chakra cloak and a shadow clone of Naruto in what appeared to be an evolved form of chakra cloak, the Kurama chakra cloak, gripped onto Ishiki's arms and held him against the wall. Ishiki struggled. He then looked up and saw Sakura coming in with it. As it collided, a massive explosion was released, a flash so bright that it threatened to burn the sky to ash. Sasuke stood. He was dazed, ears still ringing, sure that his eardrums had ruptured. In the smoke, he saw Naruto standing there. Together they made their way down the incline to the crater. Ishiki was nowhere to be found, likely completely eradicated by the blast. Laying in the center of the crater was Sakura. Sasuke rushed to her. He held her up as Naruto checked for a pulse. It's there, but it's weak. Sasuke held her close. Sakura, please don't leave me. I need you. Sarada needs you. Please, just come back to me. I love you. Within her subconscious, she sat there on the ground with Isobu. Isobu was in such a small form. That's how much chakra he had burned up. He couldn't even remain as his full body. Sakura was stroking him as he rested in her arms. She suddenly didn't feel so tired. She assumed Isobu had given her some of his remaining chakra to put a pep in her step. She looked to Isobu. What's happening? He looked up at her with the biggest eyes. Saku-chan, I'm gonna die. Her brow furrowed. Why? Because I used up all my chakra. Sakura seemed to panic a bit. But you'll reform, won't you? Isobu shook his head. No, my chakra is gone. It's been transformed into something else that's not me. I can't reform it. Sakura's eyes began to overflow with tears. Then what's gonna happen to you? Isobu was silent for a moment. I hope I can go to heaven. That's what I want to happen to me next. Then I can see Rin, and one day when your time comes to an end, I can see you too. Sakura was sniffling through her tears. I'm sure he'll get to go. He offered her a smile to her as he lay there looking back at her. Please don't cry, Sakura-chan. You have such a pretty smile. I want that to be the last thing I see before I go away. I want to know that you'll be okay. She sniffled a bit. I'm never gonna be okay without you, she said. But you'll try? He asked as one of his tails wiped away a tear. She opened her eyes to see him smiling at her. Sakura nodded and smiled for him too. I'll try. Isobu's smile grew. Good. I'll always be thinking of you. And then, in that moment, Sakura was gone. Sakura was at home with Sarada, playing with her, keeping her happy. That's when Sasuke walked in. Where are my beautiful girls? He turned the corner. There they are. He stepped over and kissed Sakura on the cheek before offering the same to little Sarada, who giggled at it before hanging over her high chair like some wilted flower. Sakura laughed. She's got all the limberness of a world-class shinobi. Sasuke looked at it. Maybe a little too much. That's just painful to look at. He grabbed some coffee. Sakura continued feeding Sarada. "So what's going on at the Hokage's office?" she asked. "Oh, it's just Naruto. He's been training with Kurama quite a bit. It seems Kurama was inspired by Isobu and is trying to give humans another chance. Naruto seems to think he was love-starved for so long that he became resentful of humans, but now they're bonding. They've still got a ways to go, but they're making some real strides in that direction." Sakura nodded. "Are you okay?" Sasuke asked her. She took a breath and let it out. "I've been crying. A lot. But I think I'll be okay. How about Matatabi?" Sasuke rubs the back of his neck. "I don't know. It seems she and Isobu were as into each other as you and I are." Sakura craned her neck back, leaving Sarada straining to get some of the mashed carrot. "Really?" Sasuke nodded. "Yeah, I was surprised too. It seems they were keeping it on the DL, even from us. Strangely enough, Matatabi's been acting really strange ever since. I assumed that maybe it was because she was depressed, but it seems like it's more than that." Sakura turned around. "You don't think..." Sasuke was silent for a moment. "Don't think what?" Sakura looked back at Sarada for a second, hoping to get the point across. Sasuke's eyes widened. "What? You think she's... No way. I don't even know if tailed beasts can do such a thing, let alone... Wait, you don't... Could she?" "I don't know, but Matatabi is a woman and a woman has needs. And I'll just say, I think it would be adorable to see a baby Isobu running around." Sasuke was a little wide-eyed by this. "I mean, yeah, it'll be cool, but she's inside of me. And if she's pregnant, then that technically makes me..." Sakura laughed. "Calm down. It's not that big a deal. I'm probably wrong. It might not even be that." But yeah, it was that. A vestige of Isobu's chakra had been left behind with Matatabi, and by feeding it some of her own chakra, she had managed to form an entirely new Isobu. It was small, but it was still Isobu. And when the time came, Sakura was happy to be a Jinchuriki once again. She knew that it wasn't really the same Isobu, but she loved it anyway. It could never replace Isobu, and she didn't need it to. But it bore a piece of her beloved tailed beast, and that was enough to fill the hole left in her heart. Yes, sir, that was enough. And that's the end of the video. I know this one was on special request, so I hope that it measured up to exactly what you all wanted and needed. I'm so happy that the last two videos made you all so happy, and I was glad to get to revisit this story with ya. You never know. If you all treat this part the same way that you treated the last two, then maybe I'll even put out a fourth part, but that really depends on how well received it is. Anyway, be sure to like, subscribe, and all that other cool jazz, and until next time, peace out.
Did you enjoy our video? Well, then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.